Hey guys, we're getting started this week with our new podcast, What Are We Building This Week? And together, what we're talking about is my team is the largest source of ADU lending in the state of California and elsewhere. And so we see all kinds of different clients and so on uh, we see all kinds of different people's ideas and what they're building and how they're doing it and why, and how you can take that information and make it work for you. What's really exciting is we're not some investor group that's like talking about pie in the sky deal ideas and quit your job. Most of our clients are treating their house as a side hustle, and they're making it work for them to create passive income. On the side. They might go to their day jobs or they might have retirement, but they're getting rental income from a brand new ADU. So I wanted to bring these stories and ideas to you on how people are doing it. So what's really exciting this week, I wanted to talk about a lady am working with, and this is such a classic case. She's a widow and she's retired. She's living in her four-bedroom single family house that she's lived in for 40 years, maybe more. And but she's living on about $2,000 a month in Social Security income. And since her husband passed, her income is down to the bone. This is the generation of baby boomers that switched from pensions to 401ks, and they never saved. They didn't know, there wasn't that real discussion and discipline. It's very, very common. So, but I tell you what, when you're in a situation like that, any of life's shocks can literally send you into homelessness. She told me she has a lot of maintenance to do on the primary house. She can't afford to do it. She certainly can't be mowing the lawn and all that kind of stuff. So, what we talked about was getting her a loan to build an ADU in her backyard. And originally she's like, well, and I'll rent out that ADU for the rental income. And I told her, you know what? I want you to keep an eye on this. And as you build, because I think you're going to end up not renting it. I think you're going to end up moving into the ADU and renting the front house. So if she built the ADU like a two-bedroom, she can rent it for about $3,000 a month. And if she chooses to have a monthly payment, we'll talk about that in a second. The monthly payment would be about 1,100 bucks a month. So that's why ADUs are so popular. The cost of building is a fraction of the cost of buying a rental home. So, and the rents are way, way, way higher. So again, her income, her cost to building the ADU would be about 1,100 bucks a month. If she chooses a loan to pay it, and her income would be about $3,000 a month. And by the way, that includes property taxes and insurance. So I said, but if you rent out the front house, if you live in the ADU and you rent off the front house, you'd be making $5,000 a month. She said, ah. And I said, and then you can build a beautiful dream home of your own customization and choosing for you to age in place. And she thought about that. She said, yeah, I do have stairs and I'm having trouble getting up and down the stairs. I said, and you're not leaving your neighborhood, you're not moving out, you're building your custom dream home. But on top of that, I said, the other option, if you don't want to deal with renters, because then she's thinking, well, I've got to remodel the house, et cetera. I said, what about just selling off the front house? What could you sell the front house for? She said, and I looked it up, and I like to look on Zillow and Redfin and kind of average what the two are, see where they're coming out. Her house is would sell about 1.2 million, while her loan to build the ADU is about 225,000. So she could build the ADU, sell off the front house, pay off her loan for the ADU, and have $1 million in the bank, minus taxes, of course. $1 million that could be her new retirement lifeline. That is game changing. And I just absolutely love what I do. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that just makes me so happy because if she could have a padding and savings, and I understand if you're young, you're thinking, well, she's in retirement, so what? You have issues with the medical bills when you're older, and especially aging in place and so on. The medical bills are a huge shock to the system. So having that cash on hand and having a backup plan makes all the sense in the world without, moving into, retirement facility and, they're anywhere between $4,000 and $7,000 cost per month with no added value. It's not like you're adding equity when you go to a retirement home. So that's the kind of story that we commonly deal with. And it's just a great reason why I'm such a believer in ADUs. The irony is, this lady used to absolutely hate ADUs, absolutely hate it. And then she started realizing, geez, my kids are talking about moving out of state. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to live in the town I've lived in all my life. So I see a ton of that. And now she's an ADU believer, which is pretty exciting. So that's kind of the kind of stuff I've been working on this week. I just got back from the tiny home show in Fresno. Holy smacks, that show is huge, like 10,000 people. And it's fascinating because people, now I don't personally finance tiny homes unless we're doing a loan on equity on the property, which is the cheapest loan on the planet. But so why do I go to Tiny Home Fest? Well, because I get it. People would love to buy a little piece of land and have their home, and they like tiny homes because they're very inexpensive. There's a beautiful little studio there for 40,000 bucks, but most of them are the ones that you really want to live in. They're about 125, 150,000. So way cheaper than building. If you were to take those units and take them off the chassis. So here's the difference between a tiny home and an ADU. A tiny home on wheels is considered to be a mobile vehicle, like an RV. And whereas if you take that unit off the chassis and you put it on ground, now it's a house, as long as it's permitted, right? Or actually, even if it isn't permitted, it's a house. So now it was a raging debate, like, why would you go through the hassle of permitting a house, the hassle of having to build a foundation, et cetera, which adds an extra 50,000 in cost, and the permits are a pain and they add some cost. Why would you do that when you can just buy a tiny home so cheap? Well, the answer to that is the financing, because the cost of $100,000 RV or tiny home is a larger payment than a $200,000 ADU. You heard me. The cost of a tiny home financing, monthly payment financing on a tiny home is a higher payment than a $200,000 ADU. Also, think about it. When you drive a car or an RV or a tiny home off the lot, does it go up in value or does it decrease in value? Right, it decreases in value. Whereas a permanent home, generally speaking, increases in value. And you can't do a cash out refinance if you need money on a tiny home, but you can do it on property. So there's no tax benefits to RVs and tiny homes, but you have the mortgage interest tax deduction, among others, on ADUs. So yeah, it was the debate that was raging on and at the show. But almost every time, it comes down to a question of how are you going to pay, for those tiny homes? Are you going to finance 100% in cash? I don't think so. So consider the ADU, and this is where it's so important. Before you start spending a bunch of money thinking you're going to do this and buy this or build this, you got to get pre-qualified. Got to get pre-qualified, because if you can't figure out the financing, that deal is dead. And ain't none of us, even my $3 million home buyers that have 200,000, 150,000 just lying around to be used. So lots of things to think about, but it was a great home show. I think next year they're going to focus more on construction of your dream home. A lot of folks, just want to buy a little piece of land out in the country and build. And I think that that is the American dream, which is always fun to see. So you can attend the next ADU fair coming up is this Saturday, November 15th, 2025, here in San Diego at Claremont High School. I will put the link to RSVP. It is free. It's in partnership with the Building Industry Association. So, as a lender, my occupational hazard is bad contractors. And this is your really highly curated group of contractors. We've been doing some very interesting things at the Building Industry Association. In particular, here in San Diego, we've been working with SDG&E, the power company, to create a process for 15-day permits. So these contractors are the guys who are on the forefront of making these processes easier, simpler, cheaper, and it's really working, which has been a lot of fun. In the Bay Area, the Small Builders Association has paved the way for those types of things. And we've got the North State BIA in Sacramento and Napa and other places where we're working on that as well. Going back to the lady I was telling you about earlier, where she's talking about selling off her ADU or selling off her front houses. Folks, if you're involved in local public policy, the city council, the county board of supervisors, whatever, let me encourage you to encourage your policymakers to adopt AB 1033. That is the state law that allows homeowners to sell off an ADU as a home. Basically, you're creating starter homes. Usually ADUs are a 1 or 2 bedroom. And we know from data in other states that 75% of ADUs are in fact sold off. So that's really important to create more inventory for those small starter homes that young families can buy, or older couples that are downsizing can buy. That's what we're missing in most of California. And I say that because in counties like San Diego and LA and Bay Area, San Diego only has 3% left of land to build. So everybody who's going, well, they should just go build another tract. The answer is where? There's no land. The only place we have to build is in people's backyards. So if I know the main issue is that the municipalities, the counties and the cities don't think that AB 1033 really matters, or that their citizens really want that. So they need to hear from you that AB 1033, the ability to sell off your ADU instead of just rent it, really does matter to you. So I hope you'll go and talk to your local powers that be, your city councilman, your county board of supervisors, or even just call the planning office and say, hey, when are you guys adopting AB 1033? I really want that to happen. So that's all for today. And next week, we'll be talking about what other projects are on the list. I have a full week of calls from everybody from the Tiny Home Fair to pencil out numbers on spreadsheets about whether their ideas pencil out or if they're dead. And that's important to making sure the prosperity of my clients and the building their income and assets through their real estate. So thanks for joining us. We'll be here every week. You can ask questions in the chat room and also attend on my Zoom hearing. I keep my events on aduloans.net, and we'll see you next week.